Welcome to today's episode. We're talking about expert secrets to resilience in rough realities. You know, those strategies for hard times. And I'm happy to introduce today's expert, Dr. Samm Pryce. She's a concierge naturopathic physician. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Pryce is a naturopathic oncologist, best-selling author, and international speaker. Known as Dr. Samm, she is an internationally recognized authority in naturopathic and integrative medicine. With a deep commitment to personalized care, she stands at the intersection of cutting edge science and natural healing, offering her patients tailored, evidence based treatments. She loves to integrate blood type science, epigenetics, and nutrigenomics to provide innovative root cause solutions for long lasting wellness. Her motto is "We test, don't guess," and it encapsulates her commitment to precision medicine. She is a TEDx speaker, 4 times best-selling author, and her TEDx talk was all about sleep, a powerful resource. And we're going to be hearing more about that today. So I just want to say welcome, welcome, and let's get the audience acquainted with you just a little bit by sharing a little bit about your story. Like, how did you get interested in a natural approach to health?
Absolutely. So, from a young age, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I wanted to be a cardiac surgeon. So, I did a report early on in my years about heart and I just fell in love. But when I was at Xavier University, studying to get into medical school, right? I had multiple jobs and I was that type A personality, always went to class, never missed anything, never missed my work shifts, none of that stuff. And I missed a whole week because I was really, really sick. And so my friends kind of came in, they came to my apartment and they were like, no, we got to take you to the doctor. So we went to the doctor, and long story short, I was misdiagnosed. So I was sick for another week. Then my aunt came in, and I remember it was like yesterday. I opened the door. I was probably really smelly. I hadn't taken a shower. I had fatigue that was unbelievable. Same gray shirt that I had been in for a week. I offered her, I'm Southern, I'm from Atlanta. So, of course, I offered her, even though I was deathly ill. I was like, would you like a glass of water? And so I had a glass of water too. And I remember taking the sip and I immediately projectile vomited. And she was like, no, baby, we got to go. And she almost carried me to the car. We went to the emergency room, and I was the third documented case of hepatitis A at that time. And I was like, what? I am not promiscuous. I do not do drugs. I knew nothing about hepatitis A, right? So
Mhm.
fecal borne contamination, and it's self-limiting. Your body has to heal itself, basically. I was devastated. I was like, I'm in my junior year. I have MCAT. I have all the stuff, right? And the
Yes.
doctor said it's going to take 3 to 9 months for you to heal. You're quarantined. I couldn't be around people. My aunt was amazing. She brought me stuff, but my mom sent me a book. And in the book, because hepatitis is a liver issue, it talked about some herbs that would help regenerate and make the liver healthy again. And my aunt was really sweet. She gave me the stuff, and I was better in like a week or two. And I couldn't wait to get back to the doctor and tell him all the stuff I did, right? However, they poo pooed it and they said, oh, it was because you were young. I was like, I was young a couple of weeks ago when you told me it was 3 to 9 months, right? Right. But it really started me thinking about this whole idea of natural medicine that I had never thought about before, right? So, in the back of that book, it talked about naturopathic medical schools that weren't quackery, as we call them, right? It was an actual medical school that gave you a medical degree, but they focused on natural medicine, right? The body healing itself, the herbs, the biochemistry behind all of it. I was fascinated and I have never looked back. So that's how I got into naturopathic medicine.
I
Always a
love that.
personal story, right?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, through your personal experience, you saw how important some natural ways of healing, how powerful they could be, and how effective.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
then you kind of got really interested in a particular aspect. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I think I started off in endocrinology. So think of diabetes, thyroid issues, those. One of my professors, I really gravitated towards her, Dr. Mona Morrisstein. And I think when I came out, that's what I gravitated towards. I did my residency with Peter D'Adamo. He's the author of Eat Right for Your Type, which is the blood type diet. So I did a lot of nutrigenomics and epigenetics with him. That's really what the residency was in, not blood type science. And he did a lot of endo work as well. But as we evolve in our own practices, I got a lot of patients that had cancer. So then it evolved into oncology. So I think I have a lot of different niches,
Yes.
but one of the ones that definitely, one of the therapies that definitely
Hmm.
spoke to me was how underutilized sleep is in all aspects of our health. So,
And so I'm so excited that we get to talk about sleep today
yeah.
because that's really what we're going to do a deep dive on. So where should people start when they start thinking about sleep? Like, why is it important? What are the things it affects that maybe we don't think about
Yeah.
often?
Yeah. I think that people think it's like, oh, we just have to go to sleep, but sleep affects your hormones. It affects your blood pressure. It affects your ability to make memories and to remember things. There's so many aspects of sleep. To me, well, not to me, it's one of the five things that we absolutely have to live. So air, water, sleep, food, and shelter. Sleep is one of the five. And I don't think people realize how important sleep is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it affects your insulin. So think diabetes, leptin, and ghrelin, right? Which are your hormones that affect your satiety, your feelings of fullness. So the sleep that you don't get, decreased sleep, increases your appetite. So think about that. So we think about obesity as well. Like if your appetite is increased, of course you're going to eat more, you're going to gain weight, right? So the better sleep hygiene you have, because we call it sleep hygiene, there is a right amount. So it's not just the duration of sleep, it's the quality of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And quality of sleep is three things. It is being able to get in restorative, it is the amount of sleep that you do, and it's unfragmented, meaning it's uninterrupted sleep. Those are the three things that you need.
That's important because I think many people don't think about those three things and just think like, well, maybe I didn't sleep so great last night. I feel a little fatigued today, but it's no
Yep.
big deal. But as you explained, it actually really affects a lot of our body systems negatively when we are short of either quantity or quality of sleep. You mentioned diabetes and metabolic issues. How does sleep really kind of affect those?
Yeah, so it's the hormones that I talked about, the insulin, the ghrelin, and the leptin, specifically for diabetes, right, and
Yeah.
obesity, and the fact that it increases your appetite. But it also affects testosterone, right? So men who get what less than or about 6 hours of sleep, so that's about normal, right? They have the testosterone levels of about someone 10 years their elder. So we have this whole thing with male infertility right now. So that's going on, but it's because men are sleeping less. It affects your blood pressure, right? Your cardiovascular function. There is a study out where we know how we have a daylight savings time, and when you lose an hour of sleep, that very next day, 24 hours later, it's a 24% increase in heart attacks the very next day. And I talked to all my ER physician friends, and they were like, I can attest to that. I can attest to that. So it affects so many things. I think what was really interesting to me when I was doing my research
Mhm.
on sleep was two things. One is, of course, the natural killer cells, because we're thinking about our immune system, right?
Right.
The World Health Organization classifies third shift work as a probable carcinogen. So what I mean by that is if you're working that shift that's like 9 to 8 or a midnight graveyard shift, as we call it, because your circadian rhythms are off, our natural ways that our body wants to sleep, where we sleep in the dark, right? We wake in the light. It's a probable carcinogen. They've verified that, meaning a probable carcinogen, meaning that it probably causes or it is a risk factor for you getting cancer. That's huge.
It
That
is.
is huge.
And
So
who
as
talks
far
about lack of sleep causing cancer, right?
exactly. Um, the other thing that I thought was really interesting in my research was the fact that Alzheimer's. So we know that Alzheimer's is what that diabetes type 3,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the third diabetes. So it come to find out those beta amyloid plaques that we see in Alzheimer's, right? You can't, well, they say that you can't find it unless you do an autopsy. What we now know is that when you're asleep, when you're in that restorative REM sleep, let's call them like little dump trucks that come through and they gobble up the beta amyloid plaques and they get rid of them. So as you continue to have lack of proper hygiene, the dump trucks don't come through. That's why you can't remember anything. You have a fuzzy head, right? You're like, what was that? Where did I leave my keys?
Yeah.
So proper sleep is really, really important. So we are at the level of legally drunk when we are awake for 19 to 20 hours. So if you think of somebody who goes out and parties, right? They've worked all day, they go out and they party, and then they go to work. Would you want them going to work like that? No, no, that's just like being legally drunk. It is really, I can't stress how much sleep affects our activities of daily living. Absolutely everything that you can think of, sleep affects.
Mm.
And we don't use it properly.
That's really interesting. I think that's really important that we pay more attention to getting sleep because not only is it like a fatigue related issue, but here we see it's related to our metabolism, to our appetite, to gaining weight, to losing our memory. There's like so many aspects.
Anxiety, depression, clumsiness, all of it.
Mm. All of it. Those are really, really interesting connections that I don't think we think about a lot. So, as you were saying, people really need to pay attention to something called sleep hygiene. So, what can we do to improve the quantity, quality, effectiveness of our sleep?
I think we can really focus on that area where I'm talking about fragmented sleep. Most people think, oh, yeah, I get up and go to the bathroom a couple of times at night, but there's so much more to that. Think about noises that disrupt your sleep, and you might be asleep, but not even realize that the noise is disrupting, right?
Yeah.
So, oftentimes, I think about your partner that's in the bed with you that snores. You
Mm.
might be so used to them snoring that you don't realize that they're actually waking you up little tiny bits and you're falling right back asleep. It's good that you can fall right back asleep, but it's still fragmented sleep. The wearable devices like the Aura Ring and the other ones that track your sleep will really tell you about noises that are waking you up. The other thing is light. Light can wake you up. So we think about those blackout curtains. Those are so important because even though my eyes are closed right now, I can see light coming in. So a simple thing like a sleep mask can help with fragmented sleep as well. I think about feng shui, which is an Oriental or an ancient Chinese medicine way of making the energy in a space different. So if you think about having really light, airy colors in the bedroom, light, airy colors of the bedding, having nothing underneath your bed, because we think of clutter under the bed comes up and clutters the mind so that we can't think. I think that most people nowadays use their phone as their alarm clock. Or even if you have a traditional alarm clock, that being by the head of the bed, those are EMFs, electronic magnetic frequencies, that can also disrupt your sleep pattern. What else can I think of? This is one that can disrupt sleep patterns. Medications. Okay. So, antacids, cold, pain medication, sometimes we don't realize that the side effects cause disrupted sleep or insomnia. So, if you're having those problems, it's a good idea to ask your healthcare provider or even the pharmacist, hey, is the side effect insomnia of these medications, especially if it's something new for you?
Oh, a good
Other,
idea.
yeah, other things are like if you've got chronic pain,
Mm.
pain can, like you're trying to get comfortable in the bed. Sometimes that's the mattress. Sometimes it's just that you have a debilitating pain, right? Cold, flu, asthma, sleep apnea. I think a lot of people don't realize that they have sleep apnea,
Mhm.
especially if you live alone. You really don't know, but a telltale sign is snoring for sleep apnea. So a sleep study is warranted in that case. And we've got CPAP machines. We've got all kinds of things now for sleep apnea, like little nasal things that can open, mouth taping, which trains you to breathe out of your nose. They have mouth guards now for sleep apnea, and then your regular CPAP machine and BiPAP machines that can help you with airway circulation. What else?
Before you move on, let's talk about that just a little bit because you mentioned how, like, my if my spouse snores, it might disturb my sleep. But if your spouse snores, your spouse may need a sleep study because this sleep apnea thing is, I think, a growing problem
Yes,
in our country, especially as
yes,
people's average weight goes up and other things. We are seeing more and more people with sleep apnea, which actually means your body's oxygen levels are dropping when you sleep.
correct,
And that
correct.
creates all kinds of problems, health wise, internally when you're not getting the kind of sleep you need. So, whether you're the one that snores or your spouse is the one that snores, be aware that I think this is a really important kind of evaluation that you can ask your
Agree.
doctor for.
Agree. And I think that some people don't even know to tell their spouse or themselves this. So this is the reason why I love that you're doing this, that we are able to educate more people about it. Some of the other things that I think about for sleep hygiene are saying no to things. So I have a whole system called a nap system, but saying no to certain things. So while we have this thing about nocturia or going to the bathroom at night, right? So not having liquids after a certain time, if that's an issue for you, right? Saying no to electronic devices because they emit a blue light. And the blue light is that same light that we get from the sun. And you know how we say, oh, it's great to be in the sunlight. It energizes you because it has a blue light. It actually gives you energy and makes you more alert. Well, our devices, our computer, our tablets, our phone emit the same light. Now, luckily on the phone, you can actually turn that down to a warmer setting at a certain time so it doesn't emit the blue light. Or you can get blue blocking glasses. They're actually kind of cute now. They're not those ugly ones that our grandmothers had. So they have cute blue blocking glasses now. Um, I think of saying no to caffeinated drinks. So while people like to drink tea in the evening, lots of tea has caffeine in it. So I would say switch to something like a chamomile tea or something like that, something that's non-caffeinated at night. Um, I
You
would say that
Before you move on, I thought it was really interesting. I saw some research about how even one cup of coffee in the morning can upset your sleep cycles at night, and you don't get the kind of restorative sleep that
correct,
you need.
correct,
And so, a
especially
lot
if you're very wired anyway, and caffeine affects you that way.
right. And the whole sleeping in the dark bit you mentioned. When my children were little, we lived in northern Michigan. And that meant that in the summertime, we often didn't really get dark, even though we lived in the country. We weren't in the
Yeah.
city, so we didn't have to worry about street lights and things like that.
Right.
But even out in the country, the sun didn't act light, like didn't actually disappear till about 10 o'clock at night.
That's
And
right.
up at 4 o'clock in the morning in the summer.
That's right.
And so I had to get light blocking blinds for all of our rooms. We did it for
Yes.
our room, for our kids' room. And that was the only way I could get them like to go to sleep at a decent hour, like 7 or 7:30, because they were small. Uh,
Yes.
and controlling their external light was super important for that. And
Absolutely.
when people get up and go to the bathroom, like you mentioned, a lot of people just flip on a bathroom light and not even think about the fact that you're waking your brain up when you do that.
Correct. Correct.
And one other thing I wanted to follow on was on the sleep study bit. I've noticed that people with sleep apnea often have to go to the bathroom more often. And once that's treated, sometimes they don't have to get up at all.
That's right.
So
You are
there
right.
could be like multiple ways in which getting that taken care of can really improve your
It's
sleep
like a
quality.
cascade effect, right? So
Yeah.
the root cause is that sleep apnea, which could be a structural thing, right?
Mm,
So you get the sleep apnea under control, then you don't have the nocturia, then you don't have the high blood pressure because if you're sleeping correctly, your heart rate and your blood pressure decreases at night. It's
mm,
almost like you know how our phone gets on half battery and we're like, oh my God, I need to plug my phone in, right? I don't know why we don't think about that with our own body.
mm.
Literally, going to sleep is like plugging your body into the socket and rejuvenating or giving yourself more power, is what the power of sleep, right? So it could affect their blood pressure. If it's a male, even a female, it affects our testosterone. It
Mhm.
can affect your insulin, your ghrelin, your leptin, your natural killer cells, all the things by just fixing the sleep apnea so that you can sleep. It's a cascade effect that
Mm.
ripples down. And now you can remember things, you have more energy, all the things. So that just that one thing, correcting that one thing can have such a good effect on the whole of the person.
That makes so much sense. And I think it's
Yeah.
really important. I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Do you have any other tips that can help people in terms of improving their sleep?
Yeah. So I think that we think that 8 hours is enough.
Mhm.
Some people need more than 8 hours. So I usually tell patients if they have 3 days where they don't have to have an alarm clock or someone waking them up and they don't have a set bedtime that they can do it, they can kind of average out those 3 days. And that's probably the amount of sleep that I need 9. And when you're sick, you need more, right?
Mhm.
That's technically how much sleep you need. I think that for us as adults, those of us who have had kids, we know that there's like these bedtime routine that you do. Okay, we're gonna have dinner, we're gonna do bath, we're gonna sing, we're gonna read, we're gonna go to bed, right?
Yeah.
There's this set bedtime routine. As adults, especially if you have insomnia or issues sleeping, you need to get down to a bedtime routine. It actually makes a muscle memory for us.
Isn't that
And it
interesting?
allows us to sleep well. So, what that looks like to me is okay, we have dinner at a decent hour, not too late because you want time for your food to digest, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you have a cup of chamomile tea with dinner or valerian or something like that. You journal while you're doing it, no screen time, actual pen and paper where you're journaling. What did I do today? A brain dump, because oftentimes when we're laying down on that pillow, our busy brain, as Dr. Romy says, starts working. It's like, what did I do today? I need to do this tomorrow. So while you're thinking about it, write it down so that your brain can do what's called a brain dump, right?
Mhm.
Maybe we run a hot bath with some nice essential oils in there, get nice and warm. I love Epsom salt. It has magnesium sulfate, is what it is, which is a muscle relaxer. It also helps with sleep. Magnesium is awesome for sleep. And then you get in your bed, a cool temperature, nice sheets. Pay attention to the thread count, it matters to help you sleep. A good pillow, a pillow that is good for you. And then you can start getting the scents right and the lighting right. So start turning the lights down around 6, 7 o'clock as you're starting to wind down. And then essential oils like Lang Lang, neroli, lavender. My caveat with lavender, with the scent, with the spray, with the linen sheets, all of that stuff is women who have an estrogen positive type of cancer should not have lavender because lavender has an estrogenic property to it. So no lavender for you if that's you. Everybody else, lavender is fantastic. You can bathe in it, all of that kind of stuff. And really, those scents go through the olfactory system and it kind of calms you down and just gets you ready for sleep. So, those are my tips. And I always end with gratitude. So,
Oh, that's such
journal,
a great
jar,
answer.
something like that. That's the last thing. That's the positivity. End in positivity always.
Those are such great tips. And I was thinking about something you had mentioned a little earlier about the environment and how it really makes a difference to our mind if our environment is like clean and orderly and neat so that it allows our minds to rest. If our bedrooms are like super cluttered, a mess, piles of clothes lying around on the chairs, what have you, you really do not rest as well as when your environment is just like very clear and uncluttered. And I
Absolutely.
think those are things sometimes we don't even think about as being related to sleep, but really do impact our sleep. So
Absolutely.
thank you for bringing all of these wonderful ideas to our attention because I think they are so important. And I love that you've been very generous. You have a free gift for our
I do.
audience today, the NAP system. Tell us just a little bit about what they'll get when they click on the link that you will find here on this page.
Yep, it's kind of like what we just went through.
Okay.
So the N is for what you're going to say no to, right? The A is the appropriate amount. The P is for that plan that I was talking about. And then the other P, so it's NAPP. P is for positivity, which is the gratitude part of it that you want to end with. So really easy. I tell you about the oils and the things that you shouldn't avoid, right? So it's just a little system that I developed that kind of jogs your memory like this is what I'm supposed to be doing for my sleep hygiene.
Great way to remind us of those steps of what we can do easily, very inexpensively to improve our sleep and improve our health and our resilience. Because as we sleep, it gives us resilience. And that's kind of what we've been talking about here the whole time in this event is how do we become more resilient? That means
Yes,
even when we like get knocked down, how do we get up quicker? And
yes.
as we speak about resilience, it really reminds me of my mother. She's going to be 96 years old in a couple of months, and she's one of
Blessing.
the most resilient people I know. But she has, for her whole life, always made sure she got a lot of sleep. In fact, even sometimes when she was in college, if she had work that kept her up at night because she worked her entire college bill off, she would sometimes fall asleep in these classes during the day, and the teachers would, say, "Are you okay?" And but she would make straight A's in the class, and part of it was
Mm,
because I think she has a really good foundation of good sleep habits, and
yes.
quit sleep. And here she is. She's almost 96. She's actually taking care of a younger sister who has cancer in her home. She's living independently, very positive mind, and doing super well for her age. And I
What a
know
blessing.
yeah, that would never have happened if
Hmm.
she had neglected sleep earlier in life. There have been things in later life that have taken from her sleep. Like, when my dad had a stroke, she really has had, a number of years of sleep deprivation
Hmm.
associated with that. But she had a very good reserve and a really strong foundation. And it's been so helpful because I think she'd be much worse off if it hadn't been for that.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for showing up today for yourself and for your health. And remember that health is wealth, and your intentional choices can get you through the hard times with flying colors. Thank you for being with us here today.